Hey guys, welcome to another video. Snoo here. I'd like to share with you my experience on what it was like farming cluster jewels super early this league. Days 2 to 5, I basically made it my home in the Abomination Tier 17 map. Farming item level 84 plus cluster jewels, made a lot of currency. Of course, you can see a Mage's Blood is there, and that's on account of sticking with that farm. It's a bit of an unconventional farm, probably not on most people's top 10 even as far as early league start farms. But I'm beginning to make it a mainstay for myself. I feel like moving forward for the foreseeable future, this is the farm I want to do and want to get into as fast as possible. Then, of course, bearing there are changes to the game, but especially in recent times with the new asynchronous trade, that made this farm way better than it is in the past for a couple different reasons, as well as the league mechanic just happened to be terrific for this farm, even though a lot of people didn't really like doing the league mechanic for currency. It had an adjacent purpose in the cluster farm. We're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a build update if you want to stick around for the remainder of the video. I figured some of you are following the build, so you might want to see what changes I've made, why I've made them, and so we'll just add that to the end. Alright, real quick, we'll just kick things off with the Atlas. You can reference this in the description of the video if you want. A quick rundown of the strategy. It looks something like this. Real quick, you'll notice I'm missing quite a few Atlas passive points, so that is something I did differently this time. Usually I go out of my way to almost complete my Atlas before diving into a serious farm. This time I didn't do that, and basically, you know, it's just nothing but Delirium, Shrines, and Nico, as well as Searing Exarch. I mean, there's not a lot to talk about. There's a little bit of increased effect of explicit modifiers, but we get packed with energy right down here. It gives us a little bit of extra mobility, survivability. We also get a bunch of shrines that do essentially the same thing. And then we have to force Delirium onto each map, a Delirium mirror, and then it has to be a permanent Delirium through Unending Nightmare. And we get a few extra cluster jewels and a little bit better reward progress, which is really nice. And then Searing Exarch just kind of used as a filler in case we get a good Eldritch Altar, or, you know, just adding extra monsters onto the map. Have an extra chance to get additional reward types, which is pretty important, which has everything to do with what scarabs are being used here. Quadruple Paranoia, which are a little bit expensive in the beginning. I think they were about 7C a piece on day 2, but then they went down to around 4 a piece now. Mania is always cheap, and then we have an Abomination map. Domination on the map device, you can honestly use anything here though. And then Searing Exarch. As far as the strategy is concerned, it can be explained very quickly. You just simply run into a map, hit the Delirium Mirror, and you front load most of the value right away, because that's a lot of Delirium reward rounds on account of Paranoia scarabs. And because there's so many different reward tiles there, you get a lot of cluster jewels at a time. This can only be achieved through permanent Delirium this way. You cannot do it in any other way. And in order to have item level 84 clusters to get those high value ones, like a couple you saw there at the beginning, it has to be in Tier 17 maps. So while this strat technically can be done in Tier 16, it's nowhere near as viable. That's okay, because we're not concerned about killing the boss, getting the Uber key fragments. I don't even care about dying a bunch of times, actually, which is definitely the case early on when the gear is still scuffed. Let's say on day 1, day 2. But yeah, 5 reward rounds is kind of my benchmark, and as you can see, I only had to clear about a quarter of the map to do that. Now I'll go on to get 6 reward rounds, I think maybe 7 in the event of breach, but it's pretty simple like that. I could spend about 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes per map, get a whole bunch of value, about 5 to maybe 10% of the time per reward round. You'll get a real big cluster, but there's still several, especially in the first day or 2, that are worth 5, 10, 20C a piece. Anytime you actually want to see what these cluster jewels are worth, you can check out PoE Ninja, the cluster tab on here. And actually, usually it's more spread out and I can see the whole thing. I have to go down here and move the bar over to get a sense of what's going on. And ironically, it looks like a little bit of funny business is going on with the data points. I'm not sure I believe this, because I'm very aware of this market right now, and these bases were never worth much more than a divine, or maybe 2 divines. But right now they appear to be worth well over that, with a sudden spike in price. Yeah, unsure about that. I haven't farmed these in the past 24 hours, so who knows. Anyway, usually the most valuable clusters, there are 3 big ones. They are the Reservation Efficiency 3 passive small, the 12 and 8 passive minion large clusters. Okay, that's pre-crafted, so you can obviously craft on a lot of these mid-tier ones and make them worth a bit more, which is something that I did. I learned quite a bit doing that and actually kind of lost a day of progress by that learning curve, I would say. But I don't regret it. I'm talking about day 3, day 4 mostly. But anyway, you can scroll down and you can see that there are still several other clusters on the list that are worth, 5 to 10 C a piece. And you would think, well, if somebody messages me for 5 to 10 C a piece, first of all, am I even going to put that cluster up for trade in leagues gone past? Maybe not. Maybe it's not worth actually exiting the map to sell a 5 to 10 C cluster, but things are quite a bit different now. Now on to the 3 major reasons why this farm was so good, why I stuck to it early on, why I wanted to jump the gun and get into it right away. Only one of the 3 reasons did I see coming, and that had everything to do with asynchronous trade. But there's a second reason asynchronous trade was really good in a less foreseeable way, and that's what I'm showing you right now. Check this out. I got an abomination map I'm searching up, tier 17. And it doesn't have to be abomination, by the way. Citadel was a good choice too. I just hate that layout. But these are a couple of really cheap maps. You don't want to do this on Fortress or another expensive map because we're not trying to kill the boss anyway. And the layout doesn't matter when you only have to clear about 20% of it to get most of the value. So you can see I have a lot of map modifiers listed that I do not want to see. Now, normally, under normal situations with trade, this is not a good idea because A, you're not going to find very many maps this way, and B, the chance of somebody actually responding to you, inviting you, going out of their map to sell you this one map is very unlikely. But things are quite a bit different now, aren't they? I can see hundreds of maps that are available, and I can indeed get any individual map I want thanks to instant buyout. And this is especially potent when, in the beginning, nobody has a lot of maps anyway. Now, right now, people do have dump tabs full of abomination maps, and perhaps somebody who can run any map modifier or doesn't want to have a tight regex, they will get a little bit more efficiency out of the process of purchasing maps. But I can tell you, especially on day 2, nobody had more than one map in their dump tab at a time. And so it made literally no difference in terms of time saving to go out of my way to regex the heck out of a map versus just buy one to chaos spam myself, which by the way costs a lot of extra currency, whether the map ends up being easy or not. And so I didn't see this coming at all. It really made me appreciate the farm a lot more. Asynchronous trade, huge win here for purchasing maps, especially the first couple days when you're not getting them in bulk in any way, shape, or form. And there's just a whole bunch of maps here. They're very easy for me to run for the build I'm running. Now, I'm promoting a regex for the build that only restricts, the most severe modifiers like monsters have a chance to avoid poison, that sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely took it to the next level by putting a third of the modifiers in the pool on there because it always just showed up hundreds of choices anyway. Now on to the second big reason why the strategy was so good. It had everything to do with league mechanic. Now I probably don't even need to show you footage of this, but I mean, just look how juicy this is around different breaches. I went up to 6 tier rewards very quickly. I'll even progress towards 7. I don't think I actually get 7 in this map, but it is just so juicy beyond belief. You guys who farm Delirium, if you've ever done 100% deli especially, you know how important breach is. And while, I could throw a bunch of breaches on the map, they're garbage in their old form, aren't they? But here, the breaches are actually really good as far as filling up deli rewards. And the cool thing about this is that I was kind of on the fence about whether or not a breach is worth doing in an individual map because the rewards aren't that great now. This gave me all the incentive I needed to actually engage with the league mechanic, and it worked out very well for this build. I was pleasantly surprised at how good a bowcast on crit detonate dead poison assassin could handle itself in 100% deli tier 17s. It was really good. And the final reason why this farm was as good as it was had everything to do with the merchant tab. This is the reason you could all see coming from a mile away. Cluster liquidation. It's one of the worst things about this strategy. It's the reason why I wouldn't have put it in an S tier league start strat in prior leagues, because it's just so annoying to liquidate clusters. However, now every single one of these clusters, I didn't have to leave a map to do it. And that is a godsend when virtually all the value of what I'm finding cannot be sold through the currency exchange. So it has to be done through this. And you can see some of the numbers are big, some of them are small. It doesn't matter, especially on day 2, I was perfectly happy selling clusters for 2 or 3 C a piece. And a lot of them were worth, half the clusters in the game were probably worth at least like 3 to 5 C a piece. And it felt totally worth it. Just put in there. It doesn't cost me any gold, it cost me almost no time to quickly check. yeah, there's like 10 more pages of what you see. I mean, this is not even 10% of the sales. It might not even be 5% of the sales in total. Now, I did sell a couple of clusters for a lot, a couple crafted ones. I did try fracturing a bit. I think the most expensive cluster I sold was for about 20 divines. Sold a couple that way. And I don't really regret doing that. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. But I will say, especially early on, we shouldn't focus on crafting, I don't think, because the market is so... in such demand for clusters to craft. I mean, people just come spamming into my hideout. Every single map I'm doing, I'm just getting spammed with notifications. People buying the cluster just undercut the market a little bit, and they buy it, whether it's, you know, the 3 passive reservation cluster, undercutting it by 5C, or, you know, some other junk cluster undercutting it by 1C. People just coming in, buying them right and left, and that worked out really well. It's definitely my favorite change this league for this strategy. Here's just a real quick snapshot of one 20 map session I did at the very end. This was actually the last session I did on day 5 before moving away from this strategy. After doing this, I was able to acquire Mage Blood. And first thing I should point out is that this was lucky. For 20 maps, it's a little bit lucky. 6 of the reservation clusters, as well as some other high value ones, is maybe, yeah, 3 to 6 divines a little luckier than normal. But you can see I farmed 23 divines. This was done in less than an hour, by the way. It's done in about 50 minutes. And so while I made over 20 div an hour, this time, that's not the average, really. It's probably somewhere around 10 to 20 div an hour, with it being closer to 20 early on and closer to 10 later on, I would say. And if you were just able to, you know, blitz the first few rooms and 6 portal to 4 or 5 rounds of daily rewards on a super scuffed character, probably closer to 5 div an hour. But if you're able to just kind of destroy everything without dying all that often, which I was in the end, somehow I leveled from 92 to 95 doing this strategy. It took a while though. Yeah, it's closer to, you know, 10, maybe 20 div an hour. And if in some case, some people probably now can do the Abomination boss in 100% deli with map modifiers, Tier 17 modifiers. I never did do that. I tried a couple times, but it just didn't seem worth it, especially with no headhunter or no mage blood or anything. You could probably get closer to 30, maybe even 40 div an hour doing that, because you could rush to the boss and you would get 5, 6, 7 daily rewards in the process, and you would get those uber fragments on top of all the clusters you would get, which would make some really high consistency in the farm, as well as a whole bunch of jackpot potential. That strategy is one that I came out with, I think, a couple of times, especially last league. In 3.26, I revisited this strat, like, I don't know, a month and a half into the league, and I made, you know, way more currency doing that than other strats I was doing. So it was quite surprising how good it was. And the cluster market at the time was still in pretty good condition. Now on to the last part of the video. In the event that you are running this same build, following along, this will be some very valuable information for you. I didn't really foresee exactly where I would take the build beyond the initial league start process, because I don't have really any experience, aside from the minimal amount of testing last year, doing cast on crit builds, especially cast on crit poison builds. So this is new territory for me, and I'm quite enjoying this process of not necessarily knowing exactly how I'm going to plot out yet my 10th tornado shot fizzed cold conversion ranger build. We have a major cluster set up now with a large as well as 2 mediums. This medium is definitely new. Student of Decay and Wasting Affliction didn't necessarily have to have these, basically just for damage and a bit of chaos resistant. Where poison duration is like over 5 seconds right now, so it's kind of good to reduce that if possible. You could use Circling Oblivion, but I think that's just getting way too much duration. Still using this medium cluster. Have to get Overwhelming Malice somewhere into the build for Wither, and you might think I would do it with the Chaos cluster, large Chaos cluster. However, we absolutely must have at least one copy of Elemental Leech that is not specific to attacks, so that Detonate Dead can leech some life. Now this is going from 0.6 from the belt to 0.2, but doing more damage now and just having a more strong build. Hopefully this is okay. It seems to be okay with a bit of limited testing so far. So I think that's going to be a nice way to keep the leech and to get a still otherwise very strong elemental cluster. The other big players are the Forbidden Flame Flesh Jewels, okay? And this basically unlocks double crit chance, because we're using for the jugular, and we couldn't really take knife in the back and rely on it any serious way. Now, unfortunately, PoE cannot detect both at the same time, so I've added it in here on the config. And you can see the damage number is about double what the initial build guide suggestion, and that reads true based on my experience of playing the build. Shuffled a few points around here because I'm now using the Light of Meaning. That's, I guess you could think of it as a replacement for a triple Grand Spectrum setup. This is a lot of extra damage. Percent increased damage, fire damage, elemental damage, poison damage, chaos damage. All of those are huge scalars for this build because we have such an enormous crit multi, dot multi effect number through Perfect Agony. Brutal Restraint, this is seed I'm using right now. It's a pretty good one. It's giving me Alchemist Genius, giving me elemental damage, poison damage. I mean, didn't I just mention this? Percent damage. Poison damage, poison damage. I think faster poison is probably the best node to get, so I may look at revisiting this, but for now, this is a really good setup for me. Also shuffled down here to add the reservation efficiency wheel. Was able to get skitterbots into the build. Now, I'm paying a pretty high price for skitterbots. I'm paying 4 passive points, a couple of gem slots, just to get what? 18% shock and 12% chill? Well, it's actually pretty effective, not just for the damage, but the chill is a big deal when we're already looking at temporal chains, a high value temporal chains on a build that doesn't freeze at all. And so I really like it. Still in the early testing phases for this. I may or may not keep skitterbots. Speaking of the amulet, I am running a new one because now I don't need all that crit chance from the previous amulet. We got the Mage's Blood in here. We got some corruptions, okay, getting more rarity. In fact, rarity number is much higher now, so I'm looking forward to actually doing a bit of serious rarity farming. Where is it at now? Oh, here it is, 198. 198, and this is permanent, okay? I'm not relying on a flask that may or may not be up, because the flasks of choice are right here. We got movement. The movement speed went crazy high after Mage's Blood naturally. That one. A diamond, I still need some crit chance somewhere. You can see I'm technically not crit cap, but this is 0 conditionals now, I think. So I'm okay settling 99.6% crit chance. And I do have the Hunter Influence Quiver for poison. We're able to get poison cap, dropping the flask by getting 1 poison hit here. And then I was able to get that quiver, and then I was able to drop Curse Mastery. So again, not even conditional for poisons whatsoever. By the way, you can get Maim and or Hinder. Oh yeah, I can't forget about the graphs. Another curious way to slow enemies down. This skill called Call the Pyre is a whole lot better than I expected. Kind of tested this by accident just because I realized I wanted to run double Zoth Graft if possible for the extremely high damage scaling potential. Up to 55% increased fire damage on 2 of these. Is a whole bunch of extra damage for this build. Poison damage. So this apparently, especially if you have cooldown reduction like this or cooldown recovery, basically every attack sends a multitude of pillars out that helps front load leech in advance of like targeting a new pack of monsters, which is really nice for this build especially. This particular skill slows enemies down, makes them take even more fire damage, which doesn't technically work for poison, but still nice for the on hit based damage for leech purposes. And I really like it. Yeah, this ends up feeling really good. Looks really cool too. And then the Molten Zoth Graft I was using before. It's, you know, most people know about this one. It's a shield. It's really strong. It's already giving me the fire damage, and probably better to have cooldown on this one as well. Although you see I have a different implicit, so you can corrupt these. You can look into that if you want. There's a special currency item for that. It looks like the crit chance per power charge is most likely the best one. Attack speed per frenzy charge is not so great. And yeah, that's going to be it for the cluster farm, where we're at with the build update, the reasons why I like the cluster farm, why I'm thinking about doing it, continuing it, moving forward, especially with asynchronous trade, breach or no breach league mechanic. And basically, if the league mechanic sucks for juicing this strategy, instead of easily getting 6 reward rounds, I get 5. Okay, it's not that big of a difference. As far as this strategy compared to others, I don't know 100% sure. I have a pretty good understanding about how lucrative boxes are, like tier 17 boxes, killing the boss and fortress, whatever. I can say with relatively high confidence this strategy is more lucrative than that one, especially if you're not dying right and left on day 2, day 1, day 2. And this is because half the clusters in the game are worth something at that point. Now moving forward, the scarab values start to go up higher and the clusters start to go down, except maybe a couple of different clusters, so that begins to call into question a bit more. However, once you unlock actually killing the boss as well as farming the clusters, then it flips the script once again, but that's asking a lot. definitely boxes is way easier. 100% deli versus strong boxes, no deli. Yeah, there's no question that the cluster farm is more difficult to pull off, but it asks less of you. You don't have to full clear the map to get a real amount of value out of it. If you guys have any remaining questions, let me know in the comments section down below. Once again, I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to take the build from here, but I'm quite sure I'm going to go pretty far with it. Hundreds of divines. And I like what I see as a potential. I think we can maybe 5x our damage pretty easily just by switching to a level 30 unearth. So that's going to take a little bit more on crafting items. But yeah, look forward to that and other things, other farming videos coming up. I'm going to spend a lot of time this upcoming week testing different strategies, and we have, of course, a new information that they're going to be buffing loot, buffing, you know, things as far as the way we play the game. Juicing tier 17, 16.5, 16s. I'm going to do a lot of wildwood fishing stuff this league, I think. Anyway, I'm set up now to move on to the next stage of the build, next stage of farming, and so we'll see what becomes of it. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.